Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, the Sheikh will be with us shortly. He's trying to log in now, inshallah. So he will be with us shortly. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How you doing, Sheikh?
Fine, alhamdulillah. Barakallah.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Good to have you today, MashaAllah. I know you just finished another live, and subhanAllah, you're here again.
MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah, it's a good thing I got a reminder this morning because actually I'd forgotten about it. But
SubhanAllah.
So I had to make it quick and finish off the earlier program.
Inshallah, it was going to take 35 to 40 minutes, and then you go rest, inshallah. So Sheikh, how you doing? It's good to have you on the platform, and Alhamdulillah, we've had a lot of amazing people who have been expecting you to get to see you, the Nigerian community, especially, Alhamdulillah. And it's just going to be a chit chat, and basically we take some few questions for people to be able to get closer to their Lord this beautiful month of Ramadan, inshallah. And one of the amazing things I tell people that, you know, Sheikh Bilal is above 70, and all the young people are be like, are you sure Sheikh Bilal is above 70? Subhanallah, he looks 50 or 40. Like, Sheikh, what do you eat to keep you fit? How do you keep fit, Subhanallah?
Well, as a basic principle, you know, I try to follow the sunnah of eating a third, drinking a third, and leaving a third for breathing, you know. And the third consists of what's supposed to consist of course, in Ramadan, it's a bit of a challenge, but it's supposed to consist of 9 tablespoons, you know, of eating, you know. So whatever you're eating, whatever fills 9 tablespoons, that's what's called luqaymat, right? That the Prophet ﷺ had said that, you know, bid'a luqaymat, meaning less than 10. 9 is the highest, right? 9 mouthfuls. Tablespoon should give you a mouthful, a reasonable mouthful. So 9 of those from food, you know, its equivalent volume from water, and then breathe for the rest. You know, leave the rest for breathing.
Really amazing.
That's the sunnah.
So, like any physical exercise?
Yeah, I do Tai Chi. You know, I was a martial artist in karate, judo, taekwondo, kung fu, all these things. I did this for many years. You know, I teach it when I was in Medina University. When I first came to Medina, I used to teach, you know, martial arts to a bunch of the students, mostly students from Africa. There were some Arabs and others in the house, which was or villa, which was special, was set aside for Chadians. So it was the Chadian villa. And so the students used to come after classes. They would come out there, and I taught them. Alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah, Shaykh. You know, you just jumped into the you know, Saudi Arabia. I want to ask you this question. You know, when you accepted Islam and became a big practicer, MashaAllah, you know, years back, were you, you know, how did you get to speak Arabic? Did you go to Saudi Arabia and you begin to speak Arabic automatically, or you actually began to learn before you go to Saudi Arabia? How did you learn Arabic?
Well, you know, I started to study it first from a tajweed perspective, for being able to read the Quran correctly, you know. And I traveled with Jamaat Tabligh, and with one particular individual there. They called him Colonel Saab. He was the Amir for North America. So I traveled, you know, as his companion. I was with him the whole time. And he taught me the basics of Tajweed. And that was my first introduction. Then, of course, once I got to understand the letters and how to read, then I wanted to understand the grammar to get into understand what I'm reading. And I bought books which were, you know, Arabic Made Easy. It's called, you know, different books, Kaplowalski's book from, and then a bunch of other books. And I started to try to study from there. You know, of course, it's not easy, you know, studying Arabic on your own and just from an English background. But alhamdulillah, at that time when I accepted Islam, you know, I was in a community where there were a number of Arabs there. So they helped also. And then within 2 years of me accepting Islam, less than 2 years, I got a scholarship to Medina. So I went across to Medina to study. And of course, when you study in Medina, if you're not an Arab or Arabic speaking, then you have to go to the institute, the Arabic Institute. So they have a 2-year program there, but because of what I had studied before, 1 year was enough for me. I studied, that was enough to get me into the classroom in the BA program to be able to at least understand basically what the teachers were saying. But of course, there's always the big challenge, because what you learn, you know, in the institute is classical Arabic. And then as soon as you get into the classroom with teachers, most of them were Egyptians when I was there, and they're coming at you with Egyptian slang. It's like, whoa, it's like another language. I'd have to be asking my classmates, okay, what did he say? Because most of my classmates were from different parts of the world where Egyptians went. The Egyptians have taught, the world basically Arabic and Islamic studies. All the madrasas across Africa, in Asia, you find Egyptians everywhere. I met Egyptians in the middle of Mindanao, in southern Philippines, in Marawi City, but they're there. So alhamdulillah, so most of them who came from backgrounds where they had already learned Arabic before they came to study in Medina, they were familiar with the Egyptian dialect, right?
Mashallah.
Yeah. So I would be asking them, okay, what did he mean by this? Okay, what was he actually saying? And I had to depend on the books,
Mashallah, tabarakallah. Sheikh, just before we go further, subhanallah, we're talking about speaking Arabic, and we know that it is the bedrock of the deen. Before you get to understand the deen, you got to understand Arabic. What advice do you have for a lot of young Muslims out there who want to learn Arabic in a non-speaking Arabic country?
Well, it depends on the country and what the country has to offer. The easiest route, if they have access to internet, is to join the International Open University in the Arabic program. We have, basic Arabic, we have intensive Arabic 2-year program, we have a full degree, bachelor's degree program, we have a master's in Arabic. So, that is the easiest way if you don't have access. Otherwise in most countries there are institutes, but you have to be careful, because you make sure that the teachers are best if the teachers are themselves Arabs, because in a lot of the madrasas, it's the blind leading the blind almost, people who themselves just had very basics in Arabic, they're teaching Arabic to those who don't have any Arabic, and it's so what they end up with is confused Arabic. Very few of those institutions really produce people who actually can communicate in Arabic, can read, and can write, etc. Very few. Majority of them, when they graduate from grade 12 level, they can't hardly write a sentence without mistakes.
Subhanallah. Sheikh, this brings me to a very important topic. And, I interact with a lot of youth. And as you know, when you came to Nigeria, we went to a lot of universities to have an interactive session with a lot of youth and likes of it. So, I've had a lot of youth coming to meet me, and we talk about how they have doubt in God and how they are also nurturing the idea of atheism and the likes of it. So what do you think are the causes of atheism among the Muslim youth? Do you think that they are not being taught the correct Islam, or is it because is this a phase that as a young person you just have to pass?
Well, I think that the main reason is ignorance.
Oh, wow.
The main reason is ignorance, because what people have learned and are practicing for the most part is cultural Islam. It's the outer trappings, the way you dress, you celebrate Eid, you fast in Ramadan, you have certain ceremonies and things that are commonly done in your given area. So this is what you relate to. You have the greeting, salam alaikum, okay, yeah, you're noted for that greeting and so on. But the real essence of the deen, when we get down to the first commandment, that of action, first commandment of faith is La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, right? That's the first commandment. And we should have enunciated that. But Is it just enough to say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah? The Prophet Muhammad said, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. Whoever says that is going to paradise. Now, what if we got a parrot and the parrot says, because you say to a parrot, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the parrot will say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Okay, parrot's going to paradise. Okay, right. So same thing, I get a non-Muslim, he doesn't believe in God or anything else, but he said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. He's going to paradise? Come on. Got to use a head here, It's not just what comes out your mouth, Just like, the 5 times daily prayer. You can teach a monkey how to pray, That's why I call that monkey prayer, the monkey prayer. The monkey see, monkey do, right? Monkey will do whatever you're doing. So that kind of prayer, unless we take the young people from the stage of imitating what we do, and take them to the level of understanding, where they understand the deen, then we are left with empty shells. People who are Muslims on the outside and nothing on the inside, just emptiness. I won't even say atheist, because maybe they don't even know enough to deny God. They're just empty. They just don't know. I don't know. Is there a God? And I don't know. I just don't know. That is the state that so many are at. They're living lives which are, we call it, split personality. When they're around the Muslims, they're Muslim. When they're around the non-Muslims, they're non-Muslims. When they're in the nightclub, they're party goers. When they're in the mosque, they're prayers. They're just, chameleons. This is chameleon Islam. You change your color according to your background. That's the chameleon. That animal that he's got a long tongue. He catches the flies and stuff. If the background's green, he turns green. If the background's brown, he turns brown. If it's gray, he turns gray. That's the chameleon. So we can call that chameleon Islam. This is what is common for many young Muslims today.
And subhanAllah, Doctor, before we just go a bit deeper into this discussion about, your point where you said it's about ignorance, lack of knowledge that people fall into this. What of those youth who are also trying to come closer to Allah, but once in a while they have this doubt in their heart, but they are scared to say it out, right? But they have the doubt, is God existing or is there no God? Nah, I don't want to say it out, but let me just keep it with myself. I've met a lot of people like that. What do you have to say about this?
Well, those who feel for Islam, they feel Islam is right, etc. But these doubts come. This from Shaitan. Shaitan is capitalizing on their limited knowledge, their limited exposure, their lack of, being around people who have higher understandings that can, reinforce the correct beliefs. So people like that, they need to go find those who can address these issues in a knowledgeable way. There are so much. We have the internet. It's not today. It's not like 25 years ago, 50 years ago.
Right.
Where you're on your own. If you have these thoughts, really, you just need to keep it to yourself. Today, you can get online and you can write somebody. You can email. You can, you can get online and speak directly. There's so much out there. I mean, there's a lot of corruption there, but at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities to get clarity. There's so many recorded lectures on internet now. It's just woof. Salam TV, you guys are, doing so much good speakers are coming on, etc., explaining, and always there's time for question. There's Q&A, there's Q&A. We even have Q&A.com. You can go there. Sheikh Munajjid, he's answering questions left and right and dealing with the things, So the key is really to utilize what means are available to us, and I encourage parents here, that, you have to help the young people, get access to the kind of knowledge that they need, which you can't provide. This is a new world now. This is not the world that you grew up in. That world you grew up in is sam'an wa ta'an. You hear and you obey. That's it. You don't dare to question. That's your generation, the generations before, etc. Although it wasn't in the prophetic generation. The companions were asking questions all the time. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to teach with questions. He was the ultimate teacher. This is what those around him said. They didn't find a teacher better than him. And he never hit them. He never frowned at them. He never, So how many hadiths where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, do you know what a is? How many hadiths? Do you know what a bankrupt person is? Do you know what how many questions like that? I would say as much as 50%, if not more, of the hadiths, the statements where the Prophet ﷺ is talking directly to the companions, because of course there's many hadiths which are describing many other things. But if we just take the hadiths where the Prophet ﷺ is talking to the companions,
right?
How many of these hadiths have questions? They begin with questions. He rarely would just go and tell them. Even the 5 pillars of Islam and the 6 pillars of Iman, the foundation, how did that begin? He said, ask me a question. This is how he began. They were all, what does the Prophet say? We're shy, to ask the Prophet. So Jibril had to come, and then he asked the Prophet, what is Islam? So this is the deen. The deen is supposed to be a religion of understanding, and we convey that understanding. Ad-dinu nasiha. It's good advice, clarifying, helping others to know what to do, etc. It's good advice. So this is what we've lost to a large degree, in the rote learning educational system, which developed in time, where now it's called teacher-centered education. That's what spread over the third world for the most part.
Right.
So the teacher will come into the classroom. As soon as he comes in the classroom, he turns his back to the students. He starts writing on the board, and he's writing. If he's right, he turns around. Okay, go to page blah, blah, blah. What does it say there? Blah, 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 these questions. Answer homework. Boom, he's gone. End of class. No room for communication. I remember when I was studying in Medina, right?
Yeah.
And with my classmates, they were from all over, from Yemen, from Nigeria, from Gambia, from Ghana, Kenya, as well as, Arab countries, Egypt, from Syria, Jordan, Malaysia, from everywhere. And I was the only one who would ask the teachers questions. Everybody else was just sitting there. And I would be asking, what is that? Many of the teachers, they liked it. They enjoyed it. I was like a breath of fresh air for them. Somebody who was going to ask, because I didn't want to leave a class without understanding what was being said. My doubts were removed. I got as clear as possible. Sometimes I even asked and got, very stunning answers. I remember my Tawheed teacher, when I asked him in first year of Medina in Tawheed class, Aqidah class, I asked him, I tried to say, that in my country, people will ask this question. So, what do you think? But the question came out as, who created God.
Wow.
Ah, the teacher says, oh, a'udhu billah. You are a kafir. Anta kafirun. This was his response. He did not, afterwards in class, I went back to him, I explained to him, listen, teacher, this is not my belief. I understand, but, I'm just asking clarity. So then he understood. Then after that, then he was welcome. He would even, after finish explaining something, he said, anyone have any questions? No. Bilal, do you have a question? No. He would always ask. So the other students used to come to me, and say, listen, you're asking too many questions. Don't ask so many questions. What are you asking all these questions for? What you're doing is slowing down, the teacher. So let him finish the curriculum. Let him give us the questions and the answers. And then, we can go and relax. That was their thing. That's how they wanted it. No questions.
Dr. Bilal, just before you go further, I also want to ask a very important question. Subhanallah. When you asked about who created God, what was the reply of your teacher?
Well, of course, he has to say that no one created God. God is uncreated. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is because children are going to ask you that question. When you go to them, you tell them, see this tree? God created the tree. See this mountain? God created the mountain. See this sky? God created the sky. Then after they've heard that, the next question that comes to their head, and then who created God? Most parents, when the children ask them that, they say, "A'udhu billah." You are possessed by the jinn. I have to take you to the sheikh to make exorcism of you. No, this is a natural question. And there are natural answers that can be given. And of course, the answer has to fit the level of the kid.
Absolutely.
So the simplest way to explain this to a kid, right? That why nobody created God, right? Why is that? Why everything else has a creator? It's created by this, that, blah, blah, blah. God create. But why not God? Okay. What you do is you take dominoes. You know dominoes? Huh? You played dominoes? I used to play it as a kid. Dominoes, okay? You set up the dominoes, a row of them, 10, 15 dominoes. You show them that these dominoes, when you push the first domino, it hits the second, the third, the fourth, and they all fall down. But now, when the dominoes are set up, if somebody doesn't push that first domino, they're not going to fall down, right? Yeah. Not going to fall down. Wow. Now, if the one who is to push the first domino it's also a domino, is anything going to happen? No. You put another domino before it? No. Nothing's going to happen until something which is not a domino hits that domino, first one, and sends them down. That's clear, crystal clear. So alhamdulillah. I mean, you use whatever example that is suitable for your environment, and show them, because it's very straightforward. This was the argument of Aristotle, that you can't, because of course the atheists like to say that there's no beginning, there's no first, because if we say everything began with the Big Bang, they say, okay, Big Bang there had to be something there to bang, right? It's not gonna bang if there's nothing there, right? So you have to have something there that Absolutely. Could be exploded to get the Big Bang.
Sure.
So now, where did that something come from? That's beyond our, the scientists would say that's beyond our realm. That is the realm of religion and so on, so on, so, For us in science, it's just the bang. Let's go from the bang. Okay, so, others would say, well, they would explain it by saying that there was no beginning. That which was there was always there. You know, there's no, its beginnings are in eternity, they say. Go back to eternity. You know, what pushed that domino was another domino that pushed another domino. You keep the dominoes going back to eternity. That's what they say. Well, guess what? Guess what?
Yes,
If
sir.
you are saying that the beginnings are in eternity, that is the same as saying it would take eternity to get here today. To get to this point where we are now, it would take an eternal amount of time to get here. That amount of time to get here is the same as saying we would never get here. Because if you can't find the beginning, then you can't get to here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was the other, you know, and this is where the dominoes illustrates that. Because if you say all the things had, you know, creators or beginners in that dominoes setup, then there's no beginning without a point in time where things began.
SubhanAllah, Sheikh, that was a beautiful example. And I just wanted to ask you again, just before we go further, we're still going to come back on the ignorance part on how to seek for knowledge the correct way. But before then, how was your transition to Islam?
Well, I came from communism to Islam. I was raised a Christian in a Christian family. My father, without my knowledge, was a muwahhid. But he came from a Christian family and he, you know, went to the church because there was no other options, you know, and but he was a muwahhid.
Wow.
So actually when he got married, you know, he left his home and got married, then he stopped going to church. But he would tell us to go with my mother. My mother was practicing, you know, Anglican, go on to church, you know, even give us some money to put in the plate or whatever. And it wasn't until after I accepted Islam and I asked him, why is it you always used to send the children, all of us, to church and you never went? He said, well, you know, actually, from the time I was 13 years old, studying in school in Jamaica, and in those days, you know, this was way back, the 30s or whatever. From in those days, they followed the British system of education, and in it, they used to have all kinds of complexities. One of the subjects they taught was logic. I mean, later on, it was just left to a university. But in those days, it was taught in high school, logic. So he said, once I studied logic and I decided to think this thing out, how it is that Jesus could be God and be Jesus at the same time. You know, how could God be Jesus and be God at the same time? This is not logical. This doesn't make sense. So for him, you know, what he could see, Jesus worshiped God. So he said, that's what I'm going to do. So from that point onward, he stopped worshiping Jesus.
He believed
His
in
father
one.
was, huh?
He believed in one God even though he wasn't a Muslim.
Pardon?
So he believed in one God even though he wasn't a Muslim.
Yeah, yeah. From back then. So his father actually was a Presbyterian minister. He was one of the top figures in the Presbyterian sect of Christianity in Jamaica. He was well known. So it was like something he basically kept to himself. You know, he just would be, from that point onwards, he said, I only worship God alone. He talked it out with his brothers and sisters. He had a big family. There was a big family. And they said, what? Ah, you're an atheist. So they used to call him the atheist because he didn't worship Jesus as God, right? So to them, it's either you believe in God or you don't believe in God. God is Jesus. You don't believe in Jesus as God, then you're not believing in God. It means you're atheist. So he used to be called, amongst them, they used to call him the atheist. So anyway, back to me.
Mm.
What happened to me is that I had become a communist. I'd left Christianity, in practice. I stopped going, didn't go to the church anymore when I was in university, got involved in student politics. From student politics, I got involved in communist thought, communist concepts, etc. All of this was about justice, equality, a just society, equal distribution of wealth, etc., etc. So communism, Marx-Leninism, it provided the framework for that just society, in theory. So I was a propagator of this. I studied the books, Marx, Engels, etc. And I reached a point where, in studying history at the same time, it seemed to me that communism, in spite of its wonderful principles, was a failure.
Mm.
It couldn't compete with capitalism, in spite of all of the principles and everything. So I said, I was sort of left hanging. What do I do now? I had briefly looked at Islam when I was in my transition,
Right.
But the Islam that was shown to me was Elijah Muhammad, the black Muslims, what they call the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan is the representative now, Farrakhan in America, And that was just what I could see clearly was just reverse racism. White people said black people were devils,
Mm.
right? Black and red people, dark people, they're devils. The true people in the likeness of God were white people. That's what Christianity was teaching. Images of Jesus Christ, is blonde hair, blue-eyed on the cross. So that's who is worshipped as God. And when they show the pictures in hell of people in hell, they're either red or they're black. These are the images. So that reinforced racism. Black people were out of the sight of God. So Elijah Muhammad, he said, no, actually, black people are gods. White people are the devils. In fact, white people were made by black people. Black people, black scientists, long time back on the moon, he put some stuff together and made a white man. This was his story, right? So, so when I visited the temple of the black Muslims, of course I was impressed by them, very clean looking, the women in hijab and all this in the prayer. But the theology was nonsense. I grew up in America, in Canada, actually. It's North America, but Canada is a bit different from US in the sense that, the racism wasn't really there. It was under the surface, it was hidden more, And I had a lot of friends growing up when I was in Canada at that time, back in the 50s, 60s. There were very few black people there. So a lot of my friends were white. I had good friends. And so I met their families, their mothers, their fathers. They were good people. They're okay people. No way you're going to convince me these people are devils. So had I been from the South of America, maybe I might have accepted that. But having grown up around white people, knowing that, hey, they're just like anybody else. I mean, they accepted me as being like anybody else, and that was okay. I couldn't accept that theology. So so I passed over it. I saw it. read Malcolm X's book and everything and carried on. I didn't read it that closely. So at one point in Canada, a few years after I'd become a communist and everything else, in the organization, communist youth organization that I was involved in, one of the members accepted Islam. And I was shocked. Why? How? Why? Islam? I saw it. It was foolishness. No. That's not the real Islam. She went on to explain about what real Islam was. I said, okay, give me some books. Let me read. I read this book. First book I read was Islam, the Misunderstood Religion by Muhammad Qutb. Now, this book is a political book. He analyzes the various political systems around the world, religious, etc. Communism, socialism, capitalism, even Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, analyzing them. Basically, what he did in a book, and it's a good book if you want to give to people who are coming from political type backgrounds. It's a good book.
Sure.
He basically analyzes each of the various movements and groups and systems, etc. Showed that there was good in all of them. Each one had a good point. What is their good features? He would identify as good features. And then he would identify the weak features. What were the negative elements of each one of these systems? And each time when he showed a good feature, he would show it's in Islam. And each time when he showed the negative feature, he would show Islam is against it. So in the end, it became clear that all of the good which were in these systems, because every one of those systems had some good, otherwise people wouldn't be following it. Every one of those systems had some good. But all the good that was in those systems, you could find it in Islam. But all the negative things found in each and every one of those systems were not in Islam. So Islam seemed to have gotten together all of the good that was out there in these other systems and was free from the negative aspects of those systems. So after reading the book, I was convinced. Islam is the true way, the true solution for the problems of humanity. So I read it and a couple of other books by Maududi and others. And alhamdulillah, shortly after that, I accepted Islam. And the brother who gave me Shahada, there are two brothers basically. One, whose name is Abdul Rashid, and the other one, his name is Dr. Abdullah Hakim Quick.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Sheikh, this is really, really interesting, subhanAllah. And, a lot of people haven't heard about the humane part of you, your journey to Islam, and this just made it very clear, subhanAllah. And again, just before we go to what I want us to really discuss before we end this live, and I want to make the seeking for knowledge to become, our last topic, inshallah. I want us to talk about, you did your PhD on exorcisms in Islam. Can you explain the concept to us, and if there's any information that you think would be useful to us, can you avail that to us?
What aspect? Exorcism? On exorcism in specifics? Or what do you mean?
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, right? There's a lot of stuff out there which people claim are ways and means of removing jinn from infected human beings. We could say this is the essence of exorcism, removing evil, whether it's forces or evil beings or whatever, from a place, a person, or an object. This is generally called exorcism, where some kind of incantations are used, or some people give medicines you drink and get whacked on your back, or, different things people do to exorcise evil from human beings, mainly. Reality is, of course, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did it. In fact, even in the Bible, Jesus is described as doing it also. Driving evil spirits out of people. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because this is the final message. Now, Jesus' methodology is lost. Christian exorcists, they do anything. They got all kinds of made up stuff using the cross. Obviously, Jesus didn't use the cross. That's one of the main objects for exorcism in Christianity is the cross. They put it on people, they put it in water, you drink the water, all kinds of stuff with the cross. But Jesus didn't die on the cross, and definitely he didn't use the cross to exorcise anybody. So they're not following the way of Jesus. They're doing their own thing. They made it up as they went along. That's reality. Now, what we find is that most of the exorcists today, whether in Nigeria or whatever, they have done the same thing. They've made up their own ways, their own concoctions, etc., garlic and, things they'll be using, hanging it, burning it, and all kinds of stuff, putting it in water, and, they will be using all of these things. But where did they get it from? Did Prophet Muhammad ﷺ do it? No, he didn't. This was not his way, So what I did after seeing from my studies, my BA and MA, I had learned about, Sharia and everything else. Aqidah was my area of specialization, theology, etc. And I always found this area of possession and exorcism a blurred area. Nobody seems to know what was actually going on and what should be done or not done or whatever. There was nothing clearly written on the topic.
Right.
So I decided to make that my PhD thesis. I would go and research and get to the bottom of it and get that clarity of what is the correct way and what is incorrect. So this was the motivation for me to go and to study it. And my thesis was published as a book, The Exorcist Tradition in Islam. It's available, published out of the UK from, what's that bookstore now? Al Hidayah bookstore there in Birmingham. And it's been republished also in Malaysia, etc. So the point is that there in the book, I have brought together the authentic hadiths which describe the Prophet ﷺ's methodology. I compared that with practices amongst Muslims and all over the Muslim world. I went, sat with exorcists in India, Pakistan, in Sri Lanka, in Trinidad, in Bahrain, in Sudan, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. I went and interviewed, collected data, research, etc., and then I compared what was in the Sunnah to what they were doing. Of course, I only went to those people who said, we are treating people according to Quran and Sunnah. Because you have a whole realm of other people who don't mention Quran and Sunnah at all. Then that is just madness. So I just left that. I didn't bother with them because it was just a waste of time anyway. At least let's work with those people who said we're doing it according to Quran and Sunnah. Of course, as it turned out, most of them were not doing it according to Quran and Sunnah. They were saying that. They were mentioning verses from the Quran. They did mention some hadiths and so on and so on. But they had added a bunch of other things. And they said, well, this is like it's like an area of tajriba. You experiment. What works, you keep. What doesn't work, you leave. But I remember, sitting in some of the lectures of Sheikh Nasruddin al-Albani, and this question was raised, and Sheikh Nasser, he talked about it, and he basically shot down the practices that people were doing. So that was his argument. Bring it from the Quran and the Sunnah. What is there we use, what is not there we leave. This is not an area of experimentation. It's not like a pharmacist. The doctor has the pharmaceutical drugs, right? You said you come with the illness. He said, okay, try this. Didn't work. Okay, like try this one. Or that didn't. Okay, try this one. Until he finds one that works. So he said, this is not how we treat the deen. This is something spiritual in the spiritual realm. It requires revelation to give us clarification. We don't do what we want to do. I mean, in Medina, there was Sheikh Ali Al-Amri. He used to grab people by the neck. When he grabbed them by the neck, he would cut off the blood flow to their brain. So they start to go unconscious. And then he would recite over them and call on the jinn and blah, 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 and they would start talking. And, this was, but we have no hadith where the Prophet ﷺ caught anybody by the in Pakistan, and India, they commonly, they will start, they start reading stuff over you, and then because they already tell you ahead of time that the jinn usually will come in from your extremities. They'll either come in through your fingers or they'll come in through your toes. Right? So what they do is, they may tie the fingers together or whatever, tie knots on each finger and so your hands and fingers. And then they tie up, one of your toes on one foot, and then they leave one foot untied. So then when they tell you and they start to read, then that foot starts to shake, right? The toe and the foot starts to shake. Okay, jinn is coming. So they'll now chase the jinn, through massaging and reading and beating and chase it up your body up there until it reaches your head and all that. Then they grab your hair and they cut it, they put it in a bottle and they burn it. So we burn the jinn. Where in the world did you get this stuff from? And of course, what happens is that when they did this, the person who came who had all these kind of problems, when they took it and they burned it in front, they were relieved. The jinn left. Wow, this thing works. But the reality is that it was psychological. You telling that person that the jinn that was in you was in your hair. I cut off that piece of hair. I put it inside of the bottle. Bottle is closed, and I burnt up that hair with the jinn in it. So your jinn is dead. So now, if you believe, because modern science will tell you, medical profession will tell you that 50% of your treatment depends on your belief in your doctor. If you don't have any belief in him, he could give you the right medicine and it still wouldn't work. But if you believe in him, he can give you the wrong medicine and it works. That is the mind, the human mind. They call it autosuggestion, where you believe so much in this person that whatever he does, he tells you, you say, yeah, and works. So what I came to understand that so much of it is involved in that, that real treatment of real cases. And again, even the cases where people are coming, mostly women coming with this possession thing, most of the women, were neurotic, they had other issues. It even became a means of getting attention to themselves. So there was no reality to it, but of course externally, they were shaking, they were doing things, and they have a thing called the czar in Egypt, where the women will get up and they're dancing and they're beating the drums and chasing on the jinn.
I don't know. Yeah. Doctor, we can keep talking about this, but subhanAllah, I will advise everyone to go through your book on this particular topic. So inshallah, what we're going to do right now is, we're going to continue tomorrow, inshallah, but we're just going to take one question. We're going to allow you to go rest, inshallah.
No,
But
you
tomorrow
can
we're
take
going to...
three questions, okay.
Two questions, okay, good, mashallah. So the first question is, you spoke in your book, The True Religion of God, you spoke about Fitra. Can you just speak a bit about Fitra? What does that word mean and how does it apply to us today?
Well, actually, in the true religion of God, the Fitra mentioned there refers to the basic hadith that the Prophet ﷺ had said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. Every child is born in a natural state of belief in God. وَأَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِدَانِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِ أَوْ يُنَصِّرَانِ. But it is his parents who will either turn him into a Jew or a Majusi, which is worshiping fire and stones, or a Christian. So the family modifies or overwhelms that natural belief and turns people into following other ways. But this is natural in every human being, wherever he's born around the world, to have this consciousness of Allah. So Allah has imprinted on our souls a consciousness of Him. That which is why religion is natural for people to believe in God. It is natural for people to believe. It is unnatural not to believe in God. That's the point. And that's why you find religion wherever you go, from the North Pole to the South Pole, to the jungles of Amazon, to the jungles of Belgium, Congo, wherever you go,
right,
people believe in God. So that is based on that natural fitra which is there. Now, the message of the prophets reinforces this belief, gives it further clarity and direction, and then you have true religion. Where the messages of the prophets don't reach those people, and the beliefs of their tribe or their clan or their region, they force the young people as they're growing up to follow the way of worshiping and believing in other than the one true God. So this is why we say, in fact, when giving dawah, one of the questions people commonly say is, there are so many religions out there. All the religions say we are the true religion. So then how do we know which one to choose? If they're all saying that they're right, then they must all be wrong. That is the conclusion. We have to tell them, wait a minute here, please. Yeah, it could be that they're all wrong, but it could be that one is right and all the rest are wrong. That's also possible, right? So that's what needs to be investigated. So from that perspective, when we talk about religion, when people say we have so many religions to choose from, we tell them, listen, there's only two. There are only two religions in the world. One is the right religion, the true religion, where you worship God alone, and the other one is the false religion, where you're worshiping other than God. All those others share that common factor. They're worshiping other than God. They can call it a man, they call it a cow, they could call it a rat, they could call it whatever they want to call it, but they're not worshiping God. Even though they say it's God, they're not worshiping God. So there's just two. This is the point we need to stress in the dawah. There are only two religions in the world today. The true religion of God and false religions of God.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, Barakallah fi Shaykh. I think this question, the person is saying that you spoke about jinn and the likes of it. The person is asking a question. He said, do you having jinn, does it mean that you're misbehaving or perhaps you're a terrible person, that's why you have jinn, or it's just something that Allah has willed and you just get it normally?
Well, to be influenced by the jinn, it can happen to anybody. It's not just bad people who get possessed by jinns. Good people can also be possessed, just like Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was affected by magic. You know, so is magic only for bad people? No. The Prophet ﷺ was affected by it. So the evil forces of the spiritual world, which are concentrated amongst the jinn, etc., you know, they may attack anyone. Wherever they see an opening, they attack. And the Prophet ﷺ has given us so many means through du'as, incantations, you know, readings. We have the Quran. We have so much there to protect us. And if we get affected, then we go to those who will treat us according to the Quran and the Sunnah. That's it.
MashaAllah, tabarakallah. I think the last question here is what is the ruling of saying Bismillah before ablution while in the toilet? Because most people today go to the bathroom and they do ablution there. So if they say Bismillah or they call the name of Allah in the toilet, so what do you say about
No
this?
problem.
No problem.
No problem.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, but people need to understand that the bathroom situation is unique and new. It didn't exist in the time of the Prophet. Toilets were not in houses. The toilet, there was not even toilet. There was no flush to flush away your stuff. No, you just went out the back and did your business. That's how it was. So when you read the hadith about the Prophet using the bathroom from Bukhari Muslim, what did he do? He would go out behind the sand dunes, so away from people so they couldn't see him. Anas would be walking along with him. Okay, it'd stop at a point. The Prophet would continue. When he finished, he would just step aside. He was in one position. He just stepped aside. He called Anas to bring the water, and he made wudu. So there was this stuff right there, So, and he said Bismillah before the wudu. So there is no problem. We have brought it into the bathroom, into what we call the bathroom. Before, actually, the bathroom that we know now, which has a toilet and a shower, in it, and a basin. That's the basic components of the bathroom. Before, the bathroom was just a room for bathing. There was a toilet, there was a bathroom, and then there was another place a sink where you would wash yourself, wash your hands, etc. Then they put this out for convenience. They brought the sink into the bathroom area, and then after that they brought the toilet into the bathroom area also. So now what do? How do we apply our principle of not using Allah's name in the toilet? How do we apply that? We apply it by what? And of course, remember now, Prophet Muhammad actually didn't say anything about this point, actually. But we know that he had a ring which said, La ilaha illallah, and he used to take it off when he went to use the toilet. So we say, okay, that means really Allah's name is not good here. Okay, so then what? So what the point is that when you're going into the bathroom, you're opening the door. Are you stepping into the toilet? No, you're not. You're stepping into the bathroom. Okay, so it's no problem for you to say Bismillah, before you go in, right? Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. Okay, Allah, protect me from the evil, spiritual, jinn, etc., nastiness in the bathroom. Okay, so the point is, going in, no problem. When you go and you sit on the toilet, when you're bathing, you can say Bismillah before your ghusl, your bath. You say Bismillah, no problem. You're in the bath. You're not the toilet. When you go and sit on the toilet, now this is the time that we say no Bismillah. Okay, you're now sitting on the toilet. Don't say Bismillah now.
Right.
You said Bismillah coming in, that covers it. You don't need to say it now.
MashaAllah. Sheikh, this is a beautiful explanation. May Allah bless you. I know you're tired. You've been extremely busy. We want to say really thank you for creating time out of your busy schedule to come online with us. Inshallah, tomorrow, same time, we're going to focus tomorrow on seeking for knowledge and how the International Islamic or the International Open University IOU can help a lot of amazing young people out there, and how they can become students and how they can also learn the deen easily. So inshallah, what we're going to focus by tomorrow, inshallah, Sheikh. So thank you so much for being online. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah fikum. And you can collect up the most useful questions from which came in this session. We can try to answer them. You can have them prepared already to be answered for the next one, inshallah.
No problem, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh.
Barakallah fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.